Hello. Yes, I am in the new wing that we added on to the palatial estate. No, actually, it's just the living room. But wife had to work today and wasn't able to get into town, so I am via remote today as we talk some IndyCar as we wrap up one race weekend and once again head into another.
I gave you every opportunity to say something fancy like, oh, I'm in the library or the drawing room or the foyer, and you went with living room. Just want to point that out.
I was trying to come up with something witty, or the aviary that we just put on, for the birds. But no, just the living room. Nothing fancy here.
Fun fact about you, well, really more about your wife, but she had a flying squirrel as a pet. We'll talk IndyCar, but I always find this so fascinating.
She did. When we first met and started dating, she had a flying squirrel named Gizmo. And I don't even remember what happened to Gizmo. But yeah, it would just be in a cage, and occasionally she'd take it out and it would, fly. It would jump from wall to wall and fly through the air. It was pretty wild. I don't even know where you get a flying squirrel, but it was something else, let me tell you. It wasn't very big. It was just a weird pet. First and only person I've ever known who had a flying squirrel as a pet.
Yeah, I am always fascinated by this every time it comes up in conversation, whether in person or via text with you. It is just such a fascinating, fun fact that I guess really that your wife could have about herself. I mean, I would use that for every name a fun fact about yourself thing.
Well, it was the missing piece to Ted's first birthday party. I should have brought him a flying squirrel gift at his birthday party.
Yeah, yes. Ted
really made his parents go crazy.
Yeah, well, he's getting into everything lately, especially this week, so it's constantly, oh, don't touch that. Oh, gotta move you. I think of a 2 or 3 year old causing trouble, but he will crawl over to somewhere and basically give you a look like he knows he's about to do something bad. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I remember that look and still get that look from our almost 3-year-old. And I was very proud, though, that he really went at his cake with such gusto. I thought it was very impressive. With his
once I showed him, hey, you can eat this, he knocked half his cake off of his high chair, which was quite fun. Quite fun indeed. All right, let's talk some IndyCar as we record to you Friday afternoon from the WELT studios. In fact, by the time this episode hits, IndyCar Practice 1 for the Java House Grand Prix of Monterey from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca will probably be underway. But first, we got to recap what happened in Toronto. And Pato O'Ward, after struggling for years at Toronto, goes on to win. It was a dynamic strategy call. It paid off. Very entertaining race all around. Toronto, I always think of as kind of the chaos race every year, and it wasn't crazy chaotic, but man, there were some really good moments during this race.
It was, and I messaged you while I was watching that Toronto, you kind of almost take it for granted because of the second half of the season, and we talked about our feelings towards that, but it is really a cool event, an exciting event. Tons of people come out. It's racy on that circuit. And it was another fun race at Toronto. It's one of those races that when the schedule comes out and we break it down, it's not one of the flashier races or even one of the street courses we really get excited about. But it delivers. It looks great on television, and it delivered a pretty good race once again last Sunday.
Speak for yourself. I say every year, I look forward to Toronto because we get something kind of funky happening. And a second you on the crowd, every year I'm like, can we add more grandstands? I feel like Toronto's got something figured out with the Free Friday they do with the Ontario Honda Dealers, which is the title sponsor for the race. But basically, you make a donation, you get access. Whether it's Canadian money, so I don't know how that transfers, to American money.
Right.
Sorry to our Canadian listeners, but you make a donation and then you get access. The crowd Friday was outstanding. Obviously, the crowd Saturday as well, and on Sunday, and you just wonder, hey, could we add some more grandstands? I know they're always doing more work, and next year we'll talk about it with schedule stuff. Is there a chance it gets moved because there are going to be World Cup games played at BMO Field, which is basically an exhibition place where Toronto's MLS team plays as well. But This is a great event. Ontario, I saw one of their elected officials said they contributed $1.5 million to the event. Obviously, it's a success. I think it'll be back on the schedule next year, and exciting race as well. So let's dive into it. And I think my first takeaway from all of this is that Chip Ganassi Racing, for once, at least it feels like it, got a strategy call wrong. Alex Palou, Scott Dixon stayed out. Cautions breed cautions. They still had to run the green alternate tires, and for once, it did not pay off for them. Scott Dixon still continued that top 10 streak. He finished in 10th, improving from 17th. Meanwhile, Alex Palou, who led a lot of laps in this race, in fact, led 37 tops among everyone in the field, went on to finish 12th.
It was weird because that's usually how Scott Dixon in particular makes things work with fuel, is those early cautions he dips in. And as you mentioned, didn't dip in. And, you know, we've talked about before about the rule and would we like to see having to run both sets of tires longer? That would be nice. But with this being a black race and being able to dip in on the lap one caution and get rid of the alternates and be done with them for the day was really the strategy to have a shot to win this race. And we see Chip Ganassi Racing take advantage of it so much. It was weird that they didn't this time. And as you mentioned, kind of cost them a chance at the victory with both Palou and Dixon. So, you know, it's one of those things we take for granted sometimes with Ganassi, is they always seem to get it right. So when they don't get it right, it is a worthy conversation to have. And it was a missed opportunity. Who knows if they would have won the race or not. But those are usually the perfect times for Dixon to dip in and go alternate strategy and find himself at the top. So it was weird that they didn't.
Palou kind of apologized, basically saying, hey, I wanted to do this alternate strategy and it didn't work. Look, if Palou goes on and finishes top 5, I mean, it's just another feather in his cap for what's been an outstanding season. I mean, running out of words, adjectives to use to describe it. But for once, didn't go his way, and Pato O'Ward gets the win. What's your first takeaway?
Well, I think the first takeaway is let's talk about Pato O'Ward, because as you mentioned, when we talk about Pato O'Ward, we could say these are the racetracks where he's competitive and these are the racetracks where he's not competitive. And Toronto was one of those ones that traditionally he was not competitive at. And when we look at McLaren and what the expectations are for them to be Indy 500 win competitors and championship contenders year after year, of which Zach Brown feels like with the new shop that they're going to have, Andretti's old shop, he feels like finally they're in position to compete for championships. These are the wins that either Pato O'Ward or whoever at McLaren needs to get. You need to be able to win at all different disciplines in IndyCar to be a championship contender. And so this win felt different for Pato O'Ward because of where it was. Now, he's won at a street course before at St. Pete. He's won, obviously, on street. He won at Detroit, I think, right, a couple of years ago. He's won at road courses, Mid-Ohio, and places like that. But you know, this just felt different because of his struggles at Toronto and the fact that these are the tracks that you have to find really some pace and have patience, and Pato is able to do that. And especially with the struggles that he had in qualifying, and he sounded a little bit frustrated after his qualifying session of feeling that they could have been higher, and started 10th and was able to get the win. So I just felt like this overall was a different feeling dub for both Pato O'Ward and McLaren for a track that he's not usually successful at, and what that means going forward.
You know, it's funny, they talk about how McLaren and Pato have struggled at this track. Well, Pato's been full-time since 2020. They didn't race in Toronto in 2020 or 2021, so we have a sample size of 3 races prior to this year. So I think it's maybe a little, like, yes, they've struggled. He has finishes of 11th in 2022, 8th in 23, and then 17th in 24. But it's a small sample size, to be fair.
Yeah, it's a great point. But I think, too, and don't overlook the fact finally getting a win with Zach Brown in attendance, of which was shocking to me. I know he doesn't make too many IndyCar races, but the fact that this was the first time that McLaren had gotten a victory with Zach Brown there, I thought that was big, too, I think, for the collective, because I don't know if it's a sigh of relief from McLaren, IndyCar McLaren, but the fact that, hey, look at us, we're able to perform when the big boss is in town and get a win. I think that in another vein meant this felt a little bit different for McLaren, this win.
A morale booster for the team, for sure. I'm going to get to my second one, and while we're not talking about a race win, which on a street course is pretty surprising considering this team has been so strong on street courses last handful of years, but Andretti, with Colton Herta in fourth, Marcus Ericsson, a much-needed result, was solid in qualifying, advance out of his group, started eighth, finished fifth, his first top five of the season, and Kyle Kirkwood, who was out of line and penalized early on the start of the race, had to give up 3 positions, then got spun around in the pits by Marcus Armstrong. For him to rebound and Andretti go 4, 5, 6, all things considered, a really good weekend for the team.
It was. Maybe another missed opportunity for Colton Herta being on pole and not winning, but still getting fourth was a big result for them. Ericsson, I felt, was the guy that needed this the most. First top 5 all season long. He's a guy that we've looked at over the course of the season and say, could his seat be up for a replacement for a Dennis Hauger, for example, coming up from Indy Lights? So I think out of anybody at Andretti of the 3, this was a needed result for Ericsson the most, even though you could say the missed opportunity for Colton Herta. So for me, I think Marcus Ericsson's top 5 was big. If he can continue that into some solid finishes the final 4 races, maybe he can hold on to that seat or at least make that decision a little bit more difficult. But yes, Marcus Ericsson has had some struggles. He's had some bad luck and some bad performances this year. But for once, not since St. Pete had he even finished in the top 10, that 5th place finish at Toronto was huge.
Yeah, 6th at St. Pete to open the year. Obviously, we know what happened at Indy. 2nd place taken away due to rules violations. It's been a struggle, not just this year, but last year as well, for him with the team. And if he finishes the season strong, look, we have 4 races left. He's currently 19th in points. He could leapfrog quite a few drivers and probably find his way into the top 15. So we'll see how he finishes, but I feel like a strong finish is needed to guarantee his 2026 with Andretti Global. All right, what's your number 2?
Or at the very least with Ericsson showing that he still has some driver prowess and maybe finds a home in the driver market. That's for sure.
True.
My number 2, let's talk about Santino Ferrucci, because we've been very much Team Santucci throughout this season. But I do think, to be fair, we need to point out the mistakes, and he made a big one last Sunday, putting it into the wall in warm-up, in which was totally unnecessary to even be going halfway fast in that session. It was declared a wet session. There wasn't going to be any rain during the race. And Ferrucci, for all of the positives that he has had this season, and us saying, could there be other teams that potentially would try to go after him, these are the things that really knock you down in terms of interest from other teams, is when you're just make a mistake like this that not only costs you the damage to the car, but you don't even start the race. And you just can't have that. And I hope he apologized profusely to the team, because this was all on him on why this happened. And it was just inexcusable to me in a warm-up that didn't matter. And even during the warm-up, they're talking, Hinch and Townsend are talking. Townsend said, heck, I'd go out to make sure my tires were scuffed, and then I'd park it. Like, there's nothing to be gained. And then in the final minute of the warm-up, he wrecks the car and doesn't even start the race. So, yeah, some positive moments from Ferrucci this season, and reasons to be encouraged for sure. But if we're pointing out the positives, we also have to point out the negatives, and that was a big negative for Ferrucci on Sunday. He drops to 12th now in the points. He's got some work to do if he's going to find himself back into the top 10 by the end of the season.
For perspective, Chip Ganassi Racing, those 3 cars did not participate in the warm-up session. So I think they made the right call based on, how things played out. You don't want to find yourself in an incident, and it's not just, that he spun and damaged the car, and if it happens during warm-up, it's a tight timeline. The team couldn't get the backup car ready in time. He also bruised his thumb pretty bad. They showed him icing his thumb. He's good to go, thankfully, for Laguna Seca this weekend. But, yeah, like you said, praise him when he's doing well, but also have to be critical when there's a mistake like that made.
Yeah, it just can't happen. I mean, he's going by himself. The trust is there for the team to put him out there saying, hey, obviously what the situation is. Don't make any mistakes. And he made a mistake. I mean, Chip Ganassi, there are no more trustworthy drivers in the series than Alex Palou and Scott Dixon. And even he said, no, we're not even chancing it. And so for AJ Foyt Racing to have the confidence in Santino Ferrucci to not make a mistake, let alone a very costly one, shows that they have faith in him. And at least on Sunday, it was misguided faith. That car had no reason to be out there that late in that session, and it ended up costing them a start. And that's huge when you're racing and try to finish in the top 10 points. And it's also huge for Santino Ferrucci when you're trying to look more and more favorable into the eyes of other team owners. That hurts you tremendously in making that kind of mistake.
And the last time car number 14 did not start, thanks to Matt Hickey for digging this up, 1994 Toronto. Brian Herta had a crash in practice, and the entry for AJ Foyt Racing did not start that year as well. The previous time was the 93 Indy 500 where AJ Foyt withdrew. So you got to go back. Ironically, it happens at Toronto in 1994 with Brian Herta. But a big mistake, and unfortunately no Ferrucci in the race, but we'll see him coming up on Sunday at Laguna Seca. All right, ready for my number 3?
Yep, what you got?
So I'm going to give you Rinus VeeKay if you want to take it, because I'm going to focus on Graham Rahal and a 7th place finish at Toronto. A good result for Graham. He's struggled this year, 20th in points. It's his first top 10 going back to the Indy GP where he finished 6th. Led a lot of laps, in fact, led the most laps and had a chance to win. Those are his only 2 top 10s of the season. However, for context, and this is pointed out by Racing Nation TV, Graham Rahal has now 4 Fast 6 appearances on the season. So, and said, y'all will still say Graham is a waste of a seat and should retire, learn some wheel. So I know you've been very critical of Graham, but hey, he had a good result. He's qualified well on road and street courses this year, and I'm giving him props where they are due.
2 top 10s all season, and all of a sudden Graham Rahal deserves our respect, according to some, apparently. Sorry, I have slightly more higher expectations for a number 1 driver at a team. Yeah, it was a good result. You can qualify well all you want, I guess. Results is where it matters. So, yeah. 2 top 10s all season long. Good on you, Graham.
All right, ready for your number 3.
You mentioned Rinus VeeKay, and that's kind of the obvious one, but I really want to talk about Kyffin Simpson, because this is a guy that, to a lot of people, myself included, when he got this Ganassi ride last year, I said this was entirely about money. And it has been for the most part. But considering what he's done this season, latest his first ever podium at 3rd place at Toronto, now sits 14th in points. That's 7 places better than he was last year. we talk about young drivers showing improvement season to season. And Kevin Simpson has done that. And the joke early in the season was how bigger he was, particularly his neck. And we've kind of moved on from that talk to actually putting results up. He has 5 top 10s this season, Caleb, compared to 2 by Graham Rahal. And this was his 5th and his first podium. I mean, this is a guy that finished 10th and 9th in 2 years in Indy Lights. He finished 8th in Indy Pro 2000. So it was fair to say that this guy purely got his IndyCar ride because of money. But this season, he is starting to prove that he has what it takes to be in this series on merit. And I think it's very exciting for Chip Ganassi Racing because they have a definite 1-2, obviously. And Kip and Simpson seem to be like, well, they had to keep him in that 3rd spot because he's financing that seat. But now you look at it and say it was a good idea to keep Kiffin Simpson. He seems to be getting more and more confident. When he is up there, he doesn't seem to put a wheel wrong, doesn't make very many mistakes on track. He's learning the craft. Now that he's in year 2, I think the confidence is starting to build as well. And I think it was really, really impressive what he was able to do at Toronto in a season that's been full of impressive performances from Kiffin Simpson.
Yeah, 2 fastest laps. Had the fastest race lap at Long Beach where he finished 10th. Also at Detroit where he got his first career top 5. Mid-Ohio, remember where he finished 10th? That was looking like a likely podium till a mistake in the pits cost him late in that race. He's just 20 years old. And he got to celebrate on the podium at Toronto. It's a complete 180. He didn't win a single race during his time in Indy Lights. Raced half a season with TJ Speed Motorsports and another other half with HMD in 22. And then in 2023 is back with HMD. Best finished a 2nd at Mid-Ohio, but didn't win any races. And usually when we're talking about a driver in IndyCar who didn't win a race in Lights, yeah, it's usually because they're bringing a hefty budget. And there's concern, right? Like, hey, how's this person going to stack up? For a comparison, Stingray Robb won a race in Lights. So I think Kiffin Simpson, the fitness level, right? He's probably one of the fittest guys out there, as you joked about his neck. But also, the results are coming in. I think it helps having 2 super experienced, successful teammates, no doubt, and racing for one of the best teams in the championship. But this has been just a complete 180 from what we saw last year, where he did start off strong at St. Pete. I think he advanced out of his group in qualifying, finished 12th, but that was it. That was his best result. Milwaukee, 2, he finished 13th, but I mean, no top 10s, right? It was a struggle, and you're kind of wondering, okay, this guy's 21st in points. Are we going to see something in year 2? And we certainly have, where he's 14th in the standings now at the podium and several top 10s as well. It's been very impressive, and I think we're all eating our words on him, right?
We are. And I think what's been most impressive, too, is the drives that he has is in his top 10 for this season. Comparatively to last year at those same tracks, you see considerable improvement. So he had a top 10 at Long Beach this year. He was 19th there last year. Detroit, he finished 5th. He was 24th at Detroit last year. Road America went from 27th last year to 6th. Mid-Ohio, 21st to 10th. And in Toronto, 22nd last year, 3rd this year. So you're seeing tangible improvement, considerable improvement at these tracks that he's posting top 10s. So he is learning. He is not making too many mistakes. And I think he's looking like an admirable number 3 to Scott Dixon and Alex Palou. And this time last year, we didn't think he would ever be able to approach that. And I feel like he's maximized his opportunity. The money has helped, but eventually you have to start putting up results. We have those questions for other drivers, but Kiffin Simpson has delivered here in 2025.
And started 10th in the Indy GP, and what was it, a hybrid issue where he didn't even start the race? So you're looking at another kind of lost result, so to speak, on this year that's kind of hurting his overall standings. So, yeah, impressive is the word I keep coming back to with him this year.
He's been very impressive. But we'll also give some love to Rinus VeeKay as well.
No doubt.
I think just another just great drive. That really it felt like a fun podium overall. You know, Pato getting the win with Zach Brown there, and then Rinus VeeKay, his best overall finish on a road course or a street course in his career, and then Kiffin Simpson first podium. It was just a feel-good type podium at Toronto. And, man, for Rinus VeeKay, you're saying, well, he's making himself look pretty good for other teams. Like, just fire it back up at Coyne next year, because this has been an outstanding relationship for both parties.
And it doesn't seem like a better seat is going to open up. And working with Michael Cannon and that Coyne team, everything is clicking right now. Christopher DeHard with this stat. Rinus VeeKay, second, never had a new set of the primary compound tires for the entire race. I mean, how many laps did he go with it? Was it 47 laps on one set of tires? Is that right?
Which is, yeah, I mean, we were like, when we talk about tire day, there didn't seem to be very much in Toronto, and usually that's bad for the show. It wasn't the case at Toronto. But, yeah, cautions kept coming out, and he kept staying out. And eventually it was like, well, he's got to pit, if anything, to run the other tire, which he didn't have to because he went in on lap one, right? So It was pretty wild.
Other notes on VeeKay's day from Archie O'Reilly of the crew from Project Dive Bomb. Best result for Dale Coyne Racing last year, just 13th. Obviously, neither car in the leader circle. VeeKay has now 7 top 10s, his first podium since 2022 at Barber, and Dale Coyne Racing's first non-oval podium since 2021.
Man, that's really cool, and congratulations to Rinus. And anytime they show his family, you usually don't see his family very much outside of Indy, but man, Dad's always smiling. It's cool. It's just a cool family. You get great vibes from them, and Rinus is some good people, and it's cool to see him having a really successful year with Coyne as well. I mean, anytime Coyne can get some love. I know I'm tough on Coyne at times, but it's been tremendous to see this season with that team.
And VeeKay's already tied his personal best with those 7 top 10s, so hopefully we'll see him extend that before the end of the season. Some other final notes on Toronto. The pace car had an issue. I don't know if you saw this. Bob Pockrass had it, but the pace car with an issue during the race, and so I believe it was a battery issue with the pace car. So they had to go back and switch pace cars. Yeah, they had to change pace cars after one had a power issue. Did you see how close Pato O'Ward avoided that final crash with just a lap and change to go?
Yes, very, very close call.
Very lucky indeed there on the incident with Siegel and I can't remember who the other car involved with that in the race. 60, so that would have been Felix. Felix Rosenquist.
Okay.
I think, yeah, Felix Rosenquist, who hung on for a long time with that damaged front wing, but not long enough.
Nope.
That will catch up to you eventually. Other notes on this race, the TV rating, well, it was good for Toronto, but Toronto's often not on network TV. 734,000. I mean, the TV ratings are what they are. I don't think we need to weekly do a deep dive on them, but you can see our charts on social media showing the TV ratings from week to week.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same story that we've talked about ad nauseum, so we don't have to hit it every week, particularly with this stretch of races where we have a ton in a short amount of time. So I guess it is what it is, Caleb.
It is what it is. For the record, up from 504,000 last time Toronto aired on linear TV in 2019 on NBCSN, which apparently could be making a comeback, or at least an NBC cable sports channel. We'll see about that. A very interesting, intriguing decision by the execs over there. By the way, Peacock, for a month, is going up in price. You could pay as much as $17 a month for Peacock Premium. I got that price for an entire year of Peacock.
Yeah, pay attention. Mr. Deals, Caleb Hatch, always seems to find these things. And, it's long story short, it's kind of, Peacock is picking up, or NBC is picking up a lot of these big money contracts, namely the NBA, and they got to pay for these multi-billion-dollar deals somehow. And so what do? You pass that cost on to the consumer, even if they don't watch the NBA. So if you have Peacock, prepare to pay a little bit more, unless you are like Caleb Hatch and can find deals.
All about the deals. Great racing in the mid-pack for Toronto. And as Nathan Brown rightly pointed out, Fox would not have shown that at the start of the year. They did a good job showcasing the battles back in the pack, especially between Will Power and Alex Palou. Late in the race, as Pato O'Ward was cruising up front, Alexander Rossi so unlucky with that barrier just slightly sticking out. That ruined his race. He posted a picture on Twitter. Just wild how we're talking maybe an inch it's sticking out, and that's where the contact was.
It just hit the wrong place at the wrong time. And we talk about Alexander Rossi and sometimes being a victim of extenuating circumstances, and this was the latest example. 99 times out of 100, that's just a little kiss and you keep going, but it absolutely shredded that tire and ruined his day.
Callum Ilott and Prima get an 8th place finish. That is their best result of the season.
How about that?
And then finally,
Prima, what else you got?
Oh, sorry. One other thing, 226 on-track passes, most since 2014.
Yeah, I felt like as much as I don't appreciate Toronto as much as I should, I felt like it was for Toronto an even more exciting race than usual. And we also noticed every year we go to Toronto, there's more and more construction and cranes and stuff. And now you have the added element of the World Cup coming next year in North America, of which Toronto is hosting a couple matches, right?
Yes.
So, what does that do to the circuit? Inevitably, I think you may have to go away from Exhibition Place, and it just lands somewhere else in Toronto because it's a great event. People show up, and it does every year just kind of poke me in the back of the brain about, man, it'd be nice to have a second Canada race somewhere, wouldn't it? Canada's a pretty damn big country. We can have 2 races up there.
And there are a lot of fans. I mean, if you get a race on the western side, I mean, they used to have the Vancouver Molson Indy years ago, and they can't use that same track due to just changes in development, largely based on Vancouver hosting the Winter Olympics, among other things. I think there's also a train stop and everything. So, look, whether it's Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, right? It feels like the Western Canada needs a race. It would be great to have a second race in Canada.
I wonder if it becomes more of a priority if and when Portland goes away, because maybe they can say, oh, we have a Pacific Northwest race in America that checks the box of that region. I don't necessarily think that's fair, but maybe if that race would go away, it would open up more of a desire to pursue some sort of race in Western Canada.
And one other note, after issues with grip, not really an issue during the race. And did you see the Alex Palou ad that they did for On the Run in DHL?
No, I did not.
Yeah, it posted on the socials. He goes into the On the Run, which is a Canadian convenience store, buys up all the ketchup, potato chips, and then drives the DHL truck into the pit, and then the crew has to unload all of the ketchup potato chips. It was a good bit. The crew's thinking they're getting ready for a pit stop, with the IndyCar, and it's the DHL truck.
Very nice. And those
very
ketchup
clever
potato chips, they always find themselves around up in Canada.
I've never had them. Have you had them?
I don't think I ever have. I like ketchup. I like potato chips. I don't know if I'd like ketchup potato chips.
I like both those things. You a poutine guy? You have poutine?
No, don't have poutine.
Oh, I enjoy poutine, especially when I had it in Canada. So I would recommend.
Yeah, I had it once. It wasn't my favorite. But I really like hockey. As long as I like hockey, I think Canada will embrace me.
That's true. I think that's the ultimate trump card with everything Canadian. You like hockey, so you're good.
Yes. Everything else is immaterial as long as I like hockey.
All right. Well, that's a look. Any other final thoughts from you on Toronto?
Overall, just a good weekend. I felt for IndyCar. I thought maybe this would be a weekend where if we had some wet conditions for the race, it would really mix things up. And instead, we have a wet warm up. But the race delivered. It was a lot of fun, and this is a race that every year we're kind of just hoping it has a long-term future with IndyCar, at least with the current circuit around Exhibition Place. And hopefully it's around for a long time, or at the very least we keep going to Toronto for a long time, because it's one of the more, at least for me, one of the more underappreciated stops on the calendar. For sure. I think I'd add whether the race in Toronto is in July or August or wherever it is on the schedule next year, and I'm sure they'll find a way, and hopefully it's either leading out of a World Cup game or leading into a World Cup game on Fox. I'm looking forward to it, as I look forward to it every year. And this weekend, IndyCar back in action, final leg of this sprint through July with, 5 races in 4 weeks? Finally wrapping up the busy July schedule, and a much-needed off week coming up next week for the drivers and teams and officials in IndyCar. But we got to talk about the Java House Grand Prix of Monterey. They signed on as the title sponsor, so all races with a title sponsor for IndyCar this year, outside, of course, the Indy 500, who has Gamebridge as a presenting sponsor. So good they got the title sponsorship deal done a few weeks ago, and it will be down to, I say, 2 drivers for this weekend in this race based on what we've seen. And I think you know the 2 drivers I'm referencing. So let's take a look at the schedule. I mentioned practice probably underway right as we release this, as it's set to start at 5 p.m. Eastern here on Friday. Saturday schedule, again, all times Eastern. Practice 1 on Friday, FS2. On Saturday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern for practice 2 on FS1. Obviously, other outlets, Sirius XM channel, IndyCar Radio, IndyCar Live as well. 2:30 Eastern qualifying, which is 11:30 a.m. California time, kind of early. And then Sunday, warm-up at noon Eastern on FS2, and race coverage starts at 3 Eastern on Fox. The part that's unfortunate in all of this is that the Brickyard 400 in NASCAR starts at 2 p.m. on, TNT? And IndyCar starts at 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox, so there will be a lot of carryover. 3:22 Eastern, 12:22 Pacific time, green flag for IndyCar at Laguna Seca, 95-lap race. Who's your winner prediction? Now, I will say this, and this stat found by Tony Donahue, Tony D, Indy. Honda's won all 5 races since IndyCar returned back in 2019. And also, our 3 key stats from Chad 200 on Laguna Seca. Will Power has never won at this track. He started on pole. He's had some really big results, but never won at Laguna Seca. In fact, as I scroll and try to find you the specific results, here we go. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 7th for Power. Alex Blows finished 2nd, 1st, 3rd, and 1st in his 4 starts with a pole, 166 laps led. Colton Herta won his first 2 starts from pole, leading 174 of 185 laps, 2nd last year as well. So, Herta or Palou, who you got? I will go Colton Herta. I think it'd be easy to pick Palou, as it has been all year. Colton Herta started on pole last week, couldn't even get a podium. I think he bounces back, gets a win. I remember one of those wins came with Harding Racing, Harding Steinbrenner, right? For Colton Herta.
That is a good question.
So
Let me see.
Technically only 1 win for Colton Herta with Andretti. So I'm going to say he makes it a 2nd win with Andretti on Sunday at Laguna Seca.
Well, I'm obviously going to pick Palou. So for the record, yes, that was the season finale in 2019 with Harding Steinbrenner Racing, where he won from pole with that team. So there you go. I guess I forgot about that.
Yeah, somehow I remembered that because I don't remember anything. Shocking.
Well, I'm obviously going with Palou. So we'll have more coming up in news and notes on IndyCar schedule news. Some potential tracks that cause quite a stir on social media. More on that in news and notes. In Mexico City, maybe not going to be in the same date that we all thought. We'll get to that as well. But first, if you agree or disagree with us, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on social media. Our Twitter handle /X handle is IndyCar Podcast. Same handle on Instagram. On Facebook, just search for New Track Record. You can email us, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your questions, comments, concerns, rants, what have you to that. You can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. Thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, rate the race time. Justin, how would you rate the 2025 Ontario Honda Dealers Indy at Toronto?
I would go with a 7.5 for this race.
That low?
That low. You know me.
You're tough. I'm gonna go.
I know. I am tough.
I'm gonna go an 8.
Okay.
I thought it was a good race. Thought it was probably maybe third best race of the year. To me, I would put Gateway number 1. Iowa 2 was also pretty good. I forget what I rated that last week, but I would put it very much in line with that. Road America was good as well.
Road or street course race of the year, that's for sure.
Yeah, Road America was good, but this to me was really good. So it's been a positive sign that Gateway on, for the most part, we've had compelling races. I mean, Gateway being IndyCar Sunday night primetime was an outstanding race. Road America was solid. Mid-Ohio had the crazy ending. Iowa 1 was okay, but at least had a shocking result based on the race. Iowa 2 had good side-by-side racing, good race overall. And then we had Toronto. So IndyCar's been on a good run. Let's just hope that Laguna Seca can be more like the Laguna Seca of 2023 than some of the earlier Laguna Secas where it's just been domination from pole. Yes, please. Let's do something. The least amount of times we have to show the pass is probably better off because that means there's actual racetrack action. So okay, over under on number of times the pass is shown 2.5. You going over or under? This is over the course of the full or during the weekend. The full weekend on Fox coverage. Oh, I would take what was the line? 2.5. I'll take over. I'll take the over. I think we'll at least see it 3 times. I think it's going to be part of an intro at least on one of the days. They'll probably have it in a feature with Colton Herta, right? Because that's his, his dad was passed on track. And now we're what's going to identify the corkscrew now? Because there's not the Hollywood-esque sign. Yes, that says corkscrew. Yeah, Kevin Dejewski on Twitter pointed out that the corkscrew sign, which is like the Hollywood sign, is gone. So the hill is just barren. It is depressing. It is very depressing for a barren track. I mean, Laguna Seca, say what you want. It's a classic track. It's also, what did I call it yesterday? It's thermal with hills. Yes. It's just not a lot to look at. And now with the corkscrew sign gone, there's one less thing. Yeah, it's disappointing to say the least. Like Sonoma, it always, you just kind of wonder, hey, what if we race there in the spring when the grass wasn't all dead? And I get it, they can't do that because it'd be much too cold. I mean, the weather this weekend is going to be very coastal. Marine layer in the morning and temperatures maybe pushing 70 degrees. So very coastal indeed. But yeah, it's no corkscrew sign is a bummer. Let's hope that will be back up because I think that was a cool addition that they had. I would definitely agree. All right. Anyway, our listeners on Rate the Race, since we rated Toronto and then got sidetracked, 8.337. That's the official number. So
very high.
They were very thrilled with what they saw at Toronto. Elsewhere on the mailbag for this week, and I'll go back to what we had last week to then more recent items. And first off, and this is from last week's episode, PF56T2 on Twitter said, heard your comments on the podcast on Iowa and marketing. NASCAR has no interest in promoting anything related to IndyCar. They will not lift a finger. IndyCar has no discernible plan for marketing and increasing awareness. They seem happy with small incremental growth. The series continues to be invisible on the national stage. This needs years of heavy investment in marketing and creating a presence. Penske thought Fox was enough. Hopefully he has learned the answer is no. If I'm Fox, I'm asking, what are you doing to create awareness? It's a crying shame. Roger is still living in the 1990s thinking network television is all he needs to do for marketing. Others will pay for everything. He thinks incremental growth is sufficient. He does not seem in the least willing to invest or partner with someone who will. Long-winded, long-worded, but could not agree more. Yes, Fox was basically, I view it as a lifeline, a lifeboat, a lifesaver, life vest, whatever life thing you want to use for IndyCar with all the races on network TV. But there's got to be something from IndyCar out of this, and we'll get to later on to some of the failures at least reported out there on Iowa. But this is the next step is, look, okay, you got Fox. They promoted IndyCar at the Super Bowl with the tie-in. St. Pete got a massive number. Things fell off. Part of that had to do with just, scheduling and TV times. They'll rectify that for next year best they can. And then the Indy 500 was great, and then now we've tailed off again since Gateway. Fox is doing their part. They're promoting. They move Gateway. They're moving race start times kind of late in the game during the season, try to help IndyCar with the ratings, but IndyCar's got to find a way to think outside the 465 bubble, as they say in Indianapolis, to get IndyCar to the masses.
I do think it's a great point that I do believe IndyCar felt like the move to Fox was all or the majority of the promotions they needed. How much did we talk about just what Fox was doing in the months leading up to the IndyCar season and the Indianapolis 500 in terms of promotions, from mentioning it on the Super Bowl to appearing in what they have, like the show car on during the Fox NFL Sunday during the playoffs,
yes.
Stuff like that. I mean, what Fox did was tremendous and more than IndyCar deserves, quite frankly, and continue to deliver more than what IndyCar deserves. I feel like for Roger Penske and Penske Entertainment, Penske Corp, they felt like this was all they needed to do. They secured this great deal with Fox, of which we give Penske a lot of credit for, but there's always room for more, and there needs to be more. And the ratings, I guess, are showing that, reflecting it, is you have to do more. And hopefully IndyCar gets the message. And hopefully, at the very least, they can continue to prop up the number with the age 18 to 35 demo, because that seems like what they've been leaning on in recent months. And they can do that. That's fine. But if they don't realize that more needs to be done, I don't really know what to tell them.
For sure. And then piggybacking off of that, the news from the Nathan Brown IndyStar.com article that Iowa is likely off the schedule for 2026, and IndyCar is looking at 3 races not on this year's calendar. Now we know 2 of them, Arlington and Mexico City, and then the third, we know they're working on Denver as a street race. That is likely set for 2027 around the Denver Broncos Mile High Stadium. So what's that third event? Richmond, Phoenix, and Homestead, all in discussion. We'll kind of break it down later, but a couple of replies. First off, we had so many responses, but Tommy the Tree 01 said, but the $1 million questions are, will the races be promoted and will fans show up? If not, is it worth going to any of those places? That's could not agree more.
That's my biggest thing, because the concerning things that we heard this past week was basically IndyCar knew that Iowa was done, or they weren't going to go back to Iowa. There was a lack of investment in propping those races up this year because there was no plans to go back anyway. And that's concerning because the tracks they're mentioning are either tracks that IndyCar has returned to in recent history and already left, Phoenix, tracks they've already been to and left because of low attendance, Homestead, and Richmond, which is kind of an unknown. Yes, they raced there in the past as well and left, but doesn't seem like Richmond is too keen on hosting IndyCar. Sounds like a track rental, pretty much.
Yes.
Just like Iowa was. And my thing in particular is Iowa has succeeded in the past without Hy-Vee, with good racing. And what we saw a couple weeks ago at Iowa was that IndyCar was able to put together a package that at least added to the show. It wasn't vintage Iowa, but it was a considerable step in the right direction. Who's to say if IndyCar for 2026 said, okay, we're going to go back to Iowa, we're going to do one night race, we are going to promote the hell out of it, we're going to take another substantial step forward in the show based on the tire compound and the setup, based on data we have, and let's try to build this thing back up. Instead, it seems like IndyCar is just giving up on Iowa and going to go find another racetrack that they can just rent out and maybe get people to go to, in which you're kind of in the same boat anyway.
Yeah, it's frustrating because you're leaving a Midwest track that's been pretty important to your series over the years, and it's a complete unknown. And we'll break down each specific track more. But yeah, I agree. It's like you finally feel like there's positive momentum after the debacle that was last year on track at Iowa, and now you're just going to give it up. The other comment was from Bob Shirley. If only there was a 2.5 mile track that was built for Indy cars. Now, he's not referencing Indianapolis Motor Speedway, everyone. He's referencing Michigan International Speedway, which, yeah, I agree, but Penske and IndyCar aren't willing to take that risk. And to be fair, IndyCar fans, for the most part, outside of Indianapolis, yes, Gateway was solid this year. We'll see Milwaukee and Nashville later this season. Iowa was obviously a ghost town, but IndyCar fans don't show up on ovals, and that's kind of where we're at with all of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just seems like a revolving door, right? Why can't we go back to Iowa to try it again next year and see if we can draw, and then add one of these tracks as well? Why does it have to be either or?
That's what the powers that be have decided. I guess that's why. So yeah, pretty short mailbag. Actually, a couple more comments. So you have posted a few days ago. It's July 22nd. Engine formula for 2028 has been confirmed, yet silence. What's your current thoughts on Honda's future in IndyCar? Run_Mark_Run on Twitter said IndyCar trots out lifeless hybrids in 2028, and F1 brings back the noise with V8s in 2029. Yeah, that timeline makes sense for the series. S2000_Moose said the ball is in Daytona's court, methinks, if Honda wants to go to NASCAR. And then Tommy the Tree 01 saying, I doubt very much IndyCar would have went back to a 2.4-liter V6 if Honda was piecing out. I think they are staying. That's the one thing, right, you can kind of hold on to, is that this was the formula it was supposed to be originally, and Chevy had issues, and that's why they had this shift to the 2.2-liter for the current engine formula. It gives you hope, returning to that it'll work out and Honda will stay.
It makes sense. And when it was first announced, that engine formula, we said the same thing. But then why hasn't it been confirmed that Honda's staying? What's the delay?
Legal?
And that's what's concerning to me.
Is it legal? Yeah. Is it all the contracts and lawyers?
I don't know. But even there's nothing coming out that's saying, yeah, it sounds like Honda's going to stay, but, they got to, dot the I's and cross the T's. I mean, there's nothing. And the longer we go with nothing, the more difficult it is for me to believe that they're staying, despite the release of the engine spec.
For sure. Well, that's the mailbag. Let's continue the discussion with the races and kind of do a breakdown. So, Homestead, Phoenix, and Richmond. You talked about Richmond. That would be a track rental. In fact, all of these would be a track rental. Let's not kid ourselves. Richmond was a fun night race, but the last edition in 2009 was an absolute disaster on track. IndyCar has not returned since. They were supposed to return in 2020, remember, pre-pandemic. So that does give you hope that there's at least a relationship there more recently on that aspect, but I guess it would be an East Coast race, kind of. It's an area that IndyCar does need to get, a race in, whether that's, at Watkins Glen or Pocono or wherever else, Loudon, which none of those places are on the radar of IndyCar currently, from what we understand. Richmond, it would at least be a starting point for the East Coast, but will it draw? Homestead, I think fans are happy about it. It'd be another a return of a 1.5 mile track on the schedule. IndyCar hasn't had since Texas was dropped. Could be some good racing, but again, will it draw? And then I think the one that feels least likely to me is Phoenix. When IndyCar was there, 2016 through 18? I went when they returned in 2016. It felt like a ghost town then on the return. The track has changed considerably. They even moved the start-finish line, remember, and changed the grandstands. I don't see how that's viable. Yes, there's a heritage of IndyCar fans in that area, and it's a doable drive for fans in Southern California. But to me, Richmond or Homestead are the more likely of the two.
Yeah, it makes no sense to go back to Phoenix. Not enough people showed up in recent history to go back to Phoenix. And so for me, it's down to Richmond and Homestead. To me, Richmond would be the one to try because of the history there in terms of haven't been there since 2011, 2009? 2009. So you would hopefully feel like maybe you're targeting a market that hasn't been touched by IndyCar in a while. We've talked about Rockingham being a little further south and trying that. But to me, Homestead purely feels like a filler event that would never draw. Phoenix was an event that didn't draw on the return, and maybe you can build something at Richmond. Regardless of where IndyCar goes, I just worry about, because all three of these racetracks are completely different. Richmond is very much a short oval. Phoenix is a mile, like a D-shaped, and Homestead's a standard 1.5 miles. They're all three different. And so one package isn't going to work at all three. My thing is if IndyCar goes to one of these three racetracks, the package stinks, and they just call it after one race instead of refining it and trying to work with the date and the package and figure out something that would work. That's my thing. Would IndyCar just be too impatient? Oh, we went back 1 year, didn't work. All right, we're not going to go back. Because coming back to Iowa, didn't work last year. It worked better this year, at least in terms of the on-track product, and IndyCar is just quick to want to walk away. And that's kind of my concern. Are they going to go back to one of these three places and try to build something over multiple years, or is this just a scramble to try to get another oval on the schedule with Iowa perceivably off for 2026 and worry about the 2027 schedule next year?
I think the other thing is, based on the tracks, IndyCar is looking at adding an oval prior to the Indy 500. Would you agree?
I would hope that's in their mind, yes, of which then two of these three make sense.
Richmond would be doable. It obviously couldn't be a night race, and it would have to be, in April or first weekend of May?
Late April,
to work?
May?
Yeah. So that's the one caveat with that. Obviously, Phoenix, if you go too late, you're going to have to for sure have it be a night race. And, you look at the 2026, NASCAR schedule and where things stand. I think you also have to keep that in mind as they just announced the race. The season finale is at Homestead, Miami, so that's not going to be an issue. November 8th, no matter when IndyCar holds it. We don't have a lot of other dates. Phoenix was a season ender in for this year. So we'll see where that's moved on the schedule as well. I think this will be prior to Indy. Richmond is scheduled in NASCAR for 2025, August 16th. So again, they can work with all these tracks on the schedule to make it work. But I just, yes, I like the idea of going back to these places, but man, it comes down to, will they draw? And there are serious questions about all three.
That's the biggest thing. And if they don't draw in year one, are they just going to walk away and then try to say, oh, okay, well, Denver street race replaces Phoenix for 2027. It was just a one-off, right? I don't know. I don't have the confidence in IndyCar. Let's say they picked Homestead tomorrow. I don't have confidence in IndyCar to go to Homestead enough and test enough to put together a good enough package for year one at Homestead Miami Speedway, regardless if people show up or not. I just don't. So I would like a multi-year commitment to whatever race oval they pick and really try to promote it and make it an event and all that. We know the limitations on ovals compared to road and street courses in terms of entertainment value and all that. But don't make this just a bare bones visit to track A, track B, or track C. Let's try to get as excited about new venues or revisited venues on the schedule like they try to make us for Arlington and Mexico City and stuff like that. Because that's what's going to build interest. And they just basically gave up on Iowa despite the improved racing this year. Are they just going to go through the motions just to say they have another oval on the schedule, or are they going to make a concerted effort to make Richmond a success or Homestead a success? There are limitations in terms of draw, like you mentioned, but you can at least try to draw. IndyCar didn't try to draw at Iowa from all indications. They just kind of went there and put on a race and said, okay, we're done. Here's your check, and we're not coming back.
And to back that up, in the story, IndyStar.com, Nathan Brown, Penske executives had already privately decided, headed into its Iowa Speedway doubleheader, that the track was not long for IndyCar's schedule. And some context by NASCARman_RR saying IndyCar has a history of self-sabotage to drop events they don't want. Put in parentheses, Fontana. Yeah, they killed that event by running it in mid-June during the daytime and put on the greatest race we have seen in IndyCar probably in our lifetimes and will ever see in front of, 2,000 people. And then he said you didn't see Iowa promotion because they didn't want you to. And, a lot of stuff on Iowa promotion or lack thereof, lack of billboards, radio and TV ads, just everything. And I get it. People say that for every race, but people who talked with fans said, yeah, no, there was no promotion of this compared to before.
And I think that's what the most frustrating thing is to me is IndyCar. IndyCar is not in a position to just give up on events and tracks that it goes to. And it seemingly made the decision it's just giving up on Iowa. And after last year, yeah, I can understand the frustrations, but Firestone did a tremendous job putting together a new tire compound to bring some tire deg to that track for this year. IndyCar did a really good job in terms of spec and adjustments to make sure that there was more raceability. And yet the higher-ups are just kind of throwing in the towel before the event even took place. Seemingly, that's what Nathan Brown is insinuating, which is frustrating. Is IndyCar leadership and business more interested in finding these partnerships with Arlington and stuff like that than building out a really solid oval schedule and putting in the efforts? I have more here's what it comes down to me. I have more confidence in fans returning to Iowa for IndyCar than I do any of the three aforementioned tracks drawing for IndyCar.
I agree. All it takes is proper promotion. The racing was so much improved that, look, you run it at night, ideally Sunday night maybe, right? I mean, you take the risk. You go Sunday night and, have a ticket package for Knoxville Raceway and IndyCar combo and promote there, and grassroots effort, all these things, right, that are talked about all the time, and just IndyCar seems to poo-poo those ideas. But this is, again, one race at night, whether it's Saturday night, which I don't think is the right call, or Sunday night, which I think would be. And look, have it the weekend leading into MLB All-Star break, right, which is also on Fox with the home run derbies, the following Monday, and then the baseball games on Tuesday, as you talked about, I think, last week. I mean, that seemed that would be a kind of seamless promotion opportunity.
Especially with that stuff, at least the All-Star games on Fox.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you have the Field of Dreams in Iowa. Like, I don't know how you can tie that in, but I'm sure you can.
It's just, I don't know, walking away from a track that you've been to since 2007 that has delivered some absolute amazing racing. And in recent history, before Hy-Vee still had plenty of people in the stands, and you're just going to walk away from it. It's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating.
Let's talk about the positive of Nathan Brown's article. Mexico City, we thought it would slate in, whether it was March 29th or April 12th, was it? Those were probably the dates we're looking at. Well, based on IndyCar looking to add another oval, it'll have to come before Indy, because Mexico City actually going to be late summer. July 26th is the expected date. Penske Entertainment targeting a visit to Mexico City off the back of its annual visit to Laguna Seca. Laguna Seca would be the same day as the World Cup final, and Mexico City would be a week later as part of the summer slate. This tells me two things. One, IndyCar is clearly listening to our "you need bigger events" second half of the season, as we joke about. You can't just have all your bangers and then Mid-Ohio comes and goes. And yeah, Toronto's been solid for years, but outside of that, it kind of feels like it's either unproven or struggling events to close out the year or the season. But this would be big. And there's even discussions of NASCAR and IndyCar racing together. Obviously, it always comes down to IndyCar not wanting to race on Saturday and Cup on Sunday, but talks were held as this being a possibility. But either way, momentum on Mexico City. This to me sounds like it's all but finalized in terms of being on the schedule in 2026.
Yeah, it's a positive development. We've heard talk too about this maybe being a track rental for IndyCar, which is, kind of scares us now when we hear track rental and what efforts that IndyCar is going to put in to promote such things. But IndyCar, we've said it time and again, IndyCar needs to be in Mexico. It needs to be Mexico 3 years ago, let alone for 2026. They just need to get there and then provide some outstanding racing. I think it's good to add this in the back end of the schedule because of what you mentioned in terms of needing some events on the back end that maybe have some flash and excitement, and that'll definitely provide that, at least the hype around the event. The grandstands will be packed down there. It'll look great on television. You just wonder in terms of what the schedule will look like next year. You mentioned, if Iowa goes away, that mid-July is open, so maybe you have an open date in July, unlike this year. My thing is we go from the middle of the season to the end of the season pretty darn quick. July 1, you're like, all right, we have half of the season left, and by the end of July, you have 3 races left. So it goes fast and on the back end. So maybe we see some races spread out a little bit more. I'm not saying going deep into the NFL season, but using Fox as a bit of a piggyback, maybe even just for one race in mid-September to wrap up the season. Maybe if Nashville was mid-September as opposed to late August, I don't know. But I like to hear that they're messing around with the schedule. And I think, you and I agree, as much as people talk about the gaps in the early part of the schedule, what bothers me more is the lack of exciting events on the back end. And Mexico would definitely provide one of those.
Let's talk another positive addition. Nathan Brown in a separate article talking about Arrow McLaren. They've moved into the former Andretti shop. It'll basically triple their square footage. They're operating basically out of 3 separate areas. So they will have a new shop for 2026. certainly help their operation, attracting talent, and just, having everything all in one spot. But I think the headline thing that came out of this story, yes, Zach Brown talking about their future in IndyCar, and I think as of right now, there's value. It must remain commercially viable, as he says. As of right now, I think based on the Indy 500 TV ratings, that things are positive in the short term. But the thing that that caught my eye and sparked interest would be their driver for the 4th seat for the Indy 500. And the story says that Zach Brown told IndyStar the team is in the throes of scheduling a rookie oval test for a driver Brown and team principal Tony Kanaan wouldn't reveal. We've got a trick up our sleeves, and it would be so cool if it happens, Brown told reporters last month in Detroit. This one would be unreal, said Brown at Toronto. It would be mega. So, Nathan Brown goes on to speculate, could it be Sebastian Vettel? I mean, throw in some other F1 ties drivers, Jenson Button, for example, who I think had an offer for Indy to run the Indy 500. I think that came out a month or two ago. I mean, those are the first two I think of right off the bat. I mean, it's not going to be Fernando Alonso again. Really off the wall and highly unlikely, but could it be Jeff Gordon or Tony Stewart? I mean, to me, the most obvious one is Kyle Busch, right? That would be huge.
Yeah, I just feel like with the connection with Zach Brown, obviously with Formula One, Vettel is the one that pops into your mind.
Yeah.
And Vettel's not that old.
No.
He's only 38 years old. So, yeah, I mean, do we know that this wouldn't just be a one-off test? It is a test to prepare for the 2026 Indy 500?
That's the understanding.
For somebody to do.
This would be the driver for that 4th Indy 500 seat for the team.
I mean, when you talk mega, I mean, a Dale Earnhardt Jr. would be mega.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
I don't either.
But Zach Brown doesn't just throw around hype just to do it. So I don't think we're talking about I don't know, like even a Kyle Busch doesn't feel mega to me.
Correct. To me, it's Vettel, it's Button, Dale Jr. certainly fits the bill. Does SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, fit the? I don't think he does. He's a star in NASCAR, but I don't think that's unreal or mega. I think we'll see him racing the Indy 500 eventually, but I don't think this is who we're talking about.
No, I mean, is it one of the guys that doesn't get the Cadillac F1 ride? I mean, are you looking at a
Perez or Bottas?
Perez if he doesn't get that ride? I don't know. But, yeah, it's very, very interesting to see what that could potentially be.
Yeah, again, Kyle Busch, that this was the guy we thought would be on the radar, but this makes it sound like it is beyond just Kyle Busch for that 4th possible seat. All right, quickly going through a couple other notes. Andretti Cape Indy Lights team parted ways with Ricardo Escado for the remainder of the 2025 season. Remember, his father was trying to promote the Mexico City IndyCar race. Didn't see a reason for why, but his series formerly known as Indy Lights wrapped up their practice session recently, and IndyCar actually now on track at Laguna Seca. For this weekend on Fox, Christian Lundgaard and Rob Edwards will be the guests in the booth for both Indy Lights races on FS1, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. Continuing on with some of the news and notes items, Don Cusick looking at the future, telling Racer.com, looking into an expansion into Indy Lights, also return to next year's Indy 500. It's not set. They'll partner with Ryan Reinbold again. Obviously, that's an option. The IndyCar season finale, Fox has extended the TV window, more pre-race coverage. Just what I love. Favorite. Fox will come on the air at 2 Eastern for the race, which would go green after 2:30 for a bit longer pre-race coming up then. And then speaking of the season finale, there is a deal, $125 gets you 2 Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum passes and 2 race day tickets for the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix, and obviously the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, which is also in Nashville, that you can take part in both of those that weekend. So kind of a cool tie-in, good promotional tie-in there. And IMS had their best ever month of May in merchandise sales. 83,000 T-shirts, 46,000 hats, 24,000 die-cast cars, home field apparel jackets, Oscar Mayer Weenie 500 shirts. Would you guess which driver sold the most merch?
Pato O'Ward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a surprise?
It was a trick question.
No.
Also late, reported late, over 8,000 new track record podcast stickers were sold.
Yeah, if only.
That may or may not be accurate.
Top 5 drivers, Pato O'Ward was number 1, Kyle Larson number 2, Newgarden 3, which he had his own Nashville apparel brand that he partnered with for his own separate trailer that he had for merch. Alexander Rossi 4, Scott Dixon 5. Pato O'Ward dominating the season-long IndyCar merchandise sales by wide margin. Pelot not on the list, so that's fascinating. But yeah, they made it work. So again, that's the part. It's merchandise sales, I think, have never been stronger for IndyCar. Especially Indianapolis, it's carrying that over to the rest of the schedule and getting those results with fans in the stands and eyeballs watching on TV.
It's just it just feels more and more to me like horse racing with the Triple Crown, and everybody knows about the Kentucky Derby especially, and so many people go and so many people watch and all that, but nobody cares about the rest of the year in horse racing. I mean, I don't. And I just think that while IndyCar has taken some steps to better promote its series, do you think the majority of people that go to Indianapolis, whether for the 500 or a practice day or whatever, I don't know, what would you put the percentage of people that tune in to any other IndyCar broadcast the rest of the season? Would you say maybe 50% of people that go in May never see another IndyCar race the rest of the year?
I would say it's much higher. I would say it's probably 2/3 to 75%, somewhere in that range.
And it's a separate conversation, one we've had before. Is so too much put into the Indianapolis 500 and not enough in the rest of the season? Without the 500, you don't have a series for sure. But without, several other races, you don't have a series either. So it's tough, but I guess it's good that the numbers are up in May. You just need to figure out a way to spread that out and spread the love over the other 16 events on the schedule.
For sure. Racer.com mailbag, any notable things this week? I know we talked about it.
No, not really. Nothing too, anything that jumped out. I don't think. It just always looking for the worst question each week, and there's no shortage.
No,
sure.
No, certainly not. And I think we have maybe one or two other notes, and then we'll get to tweets of the week. Yes, this is exciting news. John Oriovitz, Indy Oreo on socials. His new book, Class of 99, now available for pre-order from Octane Press. Books will ship in about 60 days. CART 1999 was, in his opinion, the most compelling season in the history of IndyCar racing. He takes a look back on that crazy season. Montoya and Franchitti tying for the points lead. Montoya winning the championship on the tiebreaker based on races won, correct? CART 99?
Yes.
I mean, the cars were incredible. I can think of, you look at CART in 1999. I mean, it's just iconic cars, iconic drivers, iconic teams, and what a season it was before things really kind of took a turn for the worse after, the 2000 season, as he details in his book, Indy Split. If you haven't read, obviously worth checking out. So we'll have to get Oreo on sometime in the next few weeks to talk about his new book. Excited to check that out. And then one final note before tweets of the week. Able Motorsports posting, they have heavy hearts passing of Ross McLeod. He came to the team in 2023, held a variety of roles, but obviously that team with heavy hearts this weekend at Laguna Seca. Okay, tweets of the week time, and we have several. Alexander Rossi saying, didn't even have to rent this one, tagging Pato O'Ward, and it's Rossi's race car on a billboard, promoting, of course, the Java House Grand Prix of Monterey. I thought that was clever. We have, let's see, Scott McLaughlin at 10,002.5 race laps in my IndyCar now because of what happened. You have Indy 44 with the viral Coldplay concert meme, and it's Townsend Bell holding Santino Ferrucci, which was quite funny. And then finally, to wrap it up, you have Joey Barnes, who's with the Inside Line podcast with Nathan Brown, talking about NASCAR at San Diego. Joey Barnes, 85. Imagine if there was a series that looked like fighter jets with wheels that could race at an Air Force base with the thinking emoji.
Well, it takes a lot of money to pull off what NASCAR is going to do at Coronado Naval Base next year, and that's just money that IndyCar, we know, isn't going to invest.
Unfortunately, likely not. All right, anything that we missed?
I don't think so. We're just racing towards the final few races of the season here, heading into Laguna Seca this weekend.
Cool paint schemes for Laguna Seca, including the Grateful Dead car for Felix Rosenqvist. I don't know if you saw that.
R.I.P. Ozzy.
They had unfortunately, they had the Ozzy and then Ozzy Osbourne passing away 2 weeks later. But that was a cool car, obviously a very cool car for Felix Rosenqvist with the Grateful Dead on it at Laguna Seca, several other interesting liveries. With that, random split era driver of the week time.
We're going to the final season of Champ Car and going with Matthew Halliday.
Who?
Matthew Halliday, a native of Auckland, New Zealand. Is that where Scotty Mac's from?
I will look that
Auckland?
up. I think he's from Christchurch.
Matthew Halliday was involved in several single-seater racing series, New Zealand, Australia, Europe, the United States. In terms of what we're interested in, he was in Indy Lights in 2001 and portions of 2002, but didn't make his Champ Car debut until 2007, raced 3 races to start the season for Conquest Racing. I know. However, his sponsorship ended after 3 races, was replaced by Jan Heelan, another random split era driver of the week. Interestingly, he was to drive for Team Australia in the 2008 Champ Car season, but there was no 2008 Champ Car season after the merger with the IndyCar series. After that, he never appeared in another race, either in IndyCar or Champ Car. He did some touring and supercars in the 2000s and 2010s. He did Porsche Super Cup as well, some GT1 World Championships in 2012. Has done Bathurst, 9 times. Never won, but has done Bathurst 9 different times, the Bathurst 1000, most recently in 2013. But did Indy Lights with Conquest Racing in 2001, 2 races with Bowes Seal Fast Racing in 2002 in Indy Lights. Best finish with 3rd at St. Louis and Fontana. His best finish was 14th at Houston for Conquest Racing in 2007. He was trending in the right direction, Caleb. He started his first race, finished 16th at the Vegas Grand Prix. He was 15th at the Long Beach Grand Prix, and he was 14th at Houston. So by that metric, by race 14 of the season, he would have won at Mexico City. But that didn't happen. He was out of a ride.
The Bowes Seal Fast Special was the 1961 Indy 500 winner with AJ Foyt. So that's that sponsor. And Conquest Racing, you mentioned, they're still actively involved in motorsports, obviously not in IndyCar, but they partner with Ferrari. They take part in the Ferrari Challenge. They also did the 24 Hours of Daytona as well. So still actively involved, just not in IndyCar or Indy Lights. But once again, I've never heard of this driver. Say what?
And still based in Indy, I want to say.
I believe so. But yeah, Matthew Holliday, once again, another random split air driver league I've never heard of.
the gift that just keeps on giving. So thank you to Matthew Holliday, still just 46 years old, from Auckland, New Zealand. I do know that's Scotty Mack's hometown. This week's random split air driver of the week.
Christchurch, New Zealand.
Christchurch. Who is from Auckland, New Zealand?
Is that Marcus Armstrong?
I think it's Marcus Armstrong. I can hear the driver intros.
He's actually also from Christchurch. So who's from Auckland?
What the heck? Somebody says Auckland. Am I wrong?
Scott Dixon was born in Australia, but obviously races under the New Zealand flag.
It's going to bother me now.
Yeah, this is actually going to bother me. Born in Brisbane.
He's a native of Auckland, New Zealand.
Who is?
Scott Dixon.
Okay. All right. Auckland. Okay. All right. So it's Scott Dixon.
Auckland.
All right. There we go.
Yes.
Got that resolved. Okay. With that, that'll do it.
Lynn was about to be furiously texting us and messaging us, the ultimate Scott Dixon fan, that we couldn't get that right.
That is correct. Lynn, we fixed
Dixon,
it for you.
I'm sure his childhood hero was not Matthew Halliday.
No. With that, for Justin Kinney, I'm Caleb Hatch. We'll be back next week to recap the Java House Grand Prix of Monterey from WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. This has been New Track Record Podcast.